Okay, so the next requirement is knowing HTML. Now, if you don't know HTML, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and this is the markup language which is the basis of web pages. Now, knowing HTML is a very good skill to have because it will help you in learning JavaScript. A basic understanding of HTML is thus recommended and very helpful because if you understand the basics and fundamentals of HTML, JavaScript will make much more sense. Because with web development and front-end development, at the very bottom we have HTML, that's the foundation of a web page. On top of that we have CSS or cascading style sheets, and on top of that we have JavaScript, which adds dynamic behavior. So that's why actually development and learning most often starts from HTML and then jumps to CSS and then to JavaScript. So if you're learning JavaScript, it's helpful if you have a good understanding of HTML. Now there's no need to be an expert at HTML. A basic fundamental understanding of HTML is more than enough. So if you don't know HTML currently, you can in fact go online and read some quick tutorials about HTML, which will give you a basic understanding of the language, and that should be more than enough. You don't need to be an expert, and understanding the basics of the language doesn't take that much time. Knowing HTML actually makes the course content more effective and your learning more efficient. Because again, HTML is the foundation. If you know that, it's a lot easier to learn JavaScript, which is built on top of all this. The next requirement is CSS. Now CSS, or cascading style sheets, is the language that is used to style HTML. It is the styling language of the web. Now as we just said, HTML is at the bottom. That's the foundation. On top of that, you have CSS. So after you learn HTML, developers usually learn CSS, and then developers move on to JavaScript. So knowing the basics of CSS is again helpful when you're learning JavaScript. Being able to understand CSS code is helpful because oftentimes JavaScript includes CSS code and manipulating a lot of CSS properties. Understanding the fundamentals is again enough. You don't need to be an expert at the language. The CSS language itself is actually quite detailed, but in order to learn JavaScript efficiently, you really just need to know the basics of CSS. So if you don't know CSS right now, again, you can go online and read some quick tutorials which should give you a basic overview, which should be enough to get you started. And just like HTML, knowing CSS makes learning JavaScript and front-end development a lot easier, faster, and simpler. Because if you know HTML and CSS, a lot of things in JavaScript will make a lot more sense. The next thing that you'll need is a web browser. Now the web browser is a core component of front-end development, and when learning JavaScript, it's very important that you have a good web browser. So a good and up-to-date web browser is required for development and learning, because oftentimes you'll be practicing code, debugging them, and inspecting them inside the web browser. Now you have a lot of options when it comes to choosing a web browser. There's Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, Apple Safari, Microsoft Edge, amongst a lot others. For this course, we're going to be using a Google Chrome browser. However, you can use other browsers as well. Do note that Chrome and Firefox actually comes with a built-in set of very good developer tools, so you might want to choose one from these two. And these browser developer tools actually make writing code a lot easier and makes debugging and inspecting code a lot easier and faster as well. And that's why a good web browser is important for front-end development. The next thing that you'll need is a code editor. Now a code editor is actually the program that you use to edit and write the code. So this is the software that you use to open up all your code files and write the code. Now a good code editor makes writing code easier because a good code editor will have a lot of features that will make writing code a lot faster and more productive. Now there are a lot of options that you have when choosing a good code editor. There's Atom, Sublime Text, amongst a lot of others. For this course, we're going to be using Atom, which is a very good open source, hackable text editor that has a lot of customizations and options available. So it's a very good text editor if you don't know where to start. However, most professional developers actually use a command line based code editor called Vim. Now Vim is very productive, however it's a bit advanced and it has a steep learning curve because it doesn't actually work like a normal GNU software. So you might want to use a simpler and more beginner friendly text editor such as Atom. Now using word processor applications such as Microsoft Word or Apple Pages is not recommended because these things are not actually designed to write code. Using a program specifically designed to write code makes programming a lot easier because they have certain features such as syntax highlighting and autocomplete. And word processor files often suffer from file extensions and encoding problems, so using them is not recommended. Just get a nice code editor and you'll be fine. Now all those requirements and recommendations are good. However, there's one requirement that is very important and that you should definitely meet when you're starting this course. And that requirement is the right mental attitude. You'll need the patience, the willingness to learn, some hard work, a lot of practice, and a never giving up attitude. Now if JavaScript is your very first programming language that you're learning, then it might have a steep learning curve. A lot of things you might not understand, and that's okay. Almost no one understands it completely on their first try. So if you're confused about something, or the language just seems very hard to actually learn, then don't give up. You might need some time before you actually understand it and everything actually clicks inside your head. So until then, you need to practice, you need to review all the materials, you need to learn the best you can, and of course, you must never give up. And if you can do that, you'll be successful at learning JavaScript, even if you're not very intelligent, tech-savvy, or very creative. So just to reiterate, these are all the things that you'll need for this course. First of all, you need a decent computer and a good internet connection. These two things are the fundamentals when it comes to development. And then you'll need a basic understanding of HTML and CSS, because understanding these two languages helps a lot when learning JavaScript. Then you'll need the right tools for development, which means a good web browser and a good code editor, because these two tools will make your development work a lot easier and faster. And of course, most importantly, you'll need the right attitude and focus. If you have all these things, you're more than ready to learn JavaScript, so go ahead and jump right into the course.